In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 brutally honest lessons that I personally have had to learn in order to go from being a very nervous and anxious speaker to being able to communicate confidently in front of hundreds of people. I learned each of these lessons in a particular sequence throughout my journey, and so I'm going to present them to you in the same order that I had to learn them. Let's dive in. Number 1, avoidance will only grow your fear. The psychological research is very clear. Avoidance is one of the worst coping strategies that you can have for any kind of fear or phobia. So imagine the person who runs out of the room when someone sees a spider. They are never going to get any less fearful of spiders because of that reaction. And in exactly the same way, when I first developed anxiety and glossophobia, I started avoiding all of the situations that caused me distress. I was at university at the time, and so I stopped going to seminars, I stopped speaking up, I dodged every single presentation I was expected to give, and eventually I dropped out of university altogether. Each time I succeeded something to my fears, it only constricted around my life even more. And more things started causing me to feel anxious. So eventually it wasn't just speaking in front of a crowd, it was speaking one-on-one, it was having a phone call, it was buying a train ticket. It only got worse, and my fears only grew. And it's a little bit like when you watch a scary film, right? The monster that you can't see is somehow scarier than the thing when it's actually revealed. And that's because our imagination is so powerful that it paints an even more vivid picture. It paints an even more scary idea of what might be there. And the same thing happens when you avoid public speaking. Let's say you dodge the speech that you're supposed to give, right? And in the moment, it feels a little bit of relief because you don't have to go and do it. But then afterwards, your imagination plays out this worst case scenario of what might have happened if I had gone. And you might see yourself trembling in front of everyone, breaking down in tears, having this whole embarrassing scenario, catastrophizing the situation. And so the imagination that you have of what might have happened is so much worse than what probably would have happened if you'd just gone and persevered and faced your fears. So overcoming our desire to avoid discomfort and to run away from what we are scared of was the first lesson that I had to learn. Lesson number 2 is that it's okay to both look and feel nervous. So when I finally stopped avoiding things that I was afraid of and I started putting myself out there by going to classes and auditions and just doing things, I found that I was getting nervous all the time, and I was very resistant to this situation. I didn't like feeling this way, and I didn't like, even more, other people seeing that I was nervous. It felt like a real attack on my ego, you might say, or it just felt that I was just very highly embarrassed and ashamed even of being nervous and seeing that as a weakness and seeing that other people are going to think the same and have the same judgments that I was judging myself for. But because of that, it was really stopping me from being able to go out there and face my fears. So the next big lesson I had to learn was that A, it was okay for me to feel nervous, and that wasn't necessarily going to mean a big catastrophe. I could experience the nerves and still be okay. And B, that other people can see me being nervous, and that was okay too. And then it didn't have to be this massive, shameful secret that it was okay to be nervous, that everyone else gets nervous too, and that I didn't have to be any more special or different than anybody else. Now, this took me quite a while, maybe because beforehand I had always been a very confident young man that had maybe become part of my identity. And so for me to be nervous in front of people, there was a greater conflict there than perhaps for someone who had experienced this in the past and had been able to deal with that. But for whatever reason, that was the situation that I found. One of the quotes that really helped me was this one from Carl Jung, who says, "What you resist persists." It's a quote that I share all the time because it gets to the heart of this lesson, which is that when you are resisting anxiety, nerves, discomfort, whatever it is, you are only compounding the problem. And what I had to learn was the ability to let go, to stop resisting, to stop trying to hide it from everyone, to stop trying to bottle it up and just let it be. And when I was able to do that, slowly those nerves started to diminish, and I wasn't adding any extra stress on top of what was already a difficult scenario. Number 3, your progress will not be linear. fast forwarding through my own story, I had been going to public speaking classes, going to auditions, performing on the theatre. And what I would find is that one day I would have done some great thing like performing in front of an audience and coming off stage feeling amazing, like I had overcome my anxiety and it was a thing of the past. And then maybe a few days later, I would go to another situation and all of those same nerves and anxieties would flood right back into my system. And I would feel like I had taken one step forward only to go right the way back to square one. And what I find is really helpful in this scenario is rather than zooming in to the shorter time frame and feeling like you've only taken a step forward to go right the way back down again, it's actually zooming out and looking at the broader picture. And in doing so, seeing that despite any blips, the trend is upwards, and that over a long enough time period, you are making progress, you are way more confident than you were 1 month, 6 months, 1 year ago. And all you need to do is keep persevering on that journey. So progress is never linear, right? In anything. So don't expect to always be moving forwards. You're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs. Not every day is going to be you showing up as the most confident version of you, but you must keep persisting and you must keep moving forwards. Number 4, true confidence must always be earned. So learning this lesson for me was in response to complacency. And what I mean by that is that when you start to build back your confidence and you start to enjoy public speaking, it's very easy for little bits of complacency to start seeping in. Maybe you feel like you don't have to prepare quite as much. Maybe you feel like you can wing that next presentation. Maybe you feel like you have got the skills and the confidence now to just chuck yourself in there and figure it out as you go. And what I found firsthand is that it's very dangerous to have that complacency, especially when you are still in the process of building your confidence and perhaps overcoming any previous nerves or anxieties. And I remember a specific speech that I did at a speaking club here in Manchester where I'd done a few and I'd been building my confidence and I felt like I was kind of there now. And then for this specific one, I hadn't prepared quite as much as previously. And I went in semi-winging it. And I felt very nervous all of a sudden, all over again. And reflecting on that, I realized confidence isn't something that you earn once and keep forever. Confidence is something that you have to earn every single day. And how you earn it is by putting in the work beforehand. It's about being prepared. It's about doing the rehearsals. It's about making sure that you've done everything you can to get the best outcome possible. And if you do all of that, then you will step on stage with as much confidence as you deserve to have. And I think that this is actually a very empowering way to think about it because confidence, it's not a gift that certain people are bestowed with or born with and other people are not. It's something that we can all earn through putting in the work, putting in the repetition, and being as prepared as we can for whatever situations come up. So as you are building your confidence, as you are pursuing this and moving along your journey, always remember, confidence must be earned. Number 5, my final lesson. Your comfort zone is always expanding or contracting. So this is a lesson that I have had to learn both myself and something that I've seen time and time again with my clients. And I guess like any other skill, you have to maintain the practice in order to stay sharp. I am self-taught on piano, but I often find that I haven't sat down for 6 months to play, and when I finally do, I have forgotten everything that I used to know, and I can't remember all the songs that I'd once learned, and I have to sit there for a long time for my brain to slowly catch up again. And public speaking is no different. I don't care how confident you are, if you haven't been socializing and communicating and speaking in public regularly for a number of years, then you're going to find it hard to step back on stage again and bring up that same confidence. And conversely, you can take someone who has always been very nervous, and if you get them to speak on stage every single night for 100 nights, then by that 100th time, they are going to come across as someone who is incredibly confident and who you would imagine has always been thus. So it is a skill like any other. It requires practice, it requires maintenance. Now, on the other hand, like riding a bike, you never really forget it. And I do also believe that when you have become a trained public speaker, part of that is with you forever. It's a skill that you have ingrained. And so even if it's a year or 10 years into the future, you're going to have retained some of those fundamental skill sets. But like anything, it gets rusty over time. And it takes time to get back into the swing of things and to enliven those old skills that you might have learned. So this final lesson is really just to remember that you must continually seek ways to push your comfort zone. Once you have found it comfortable speaking up in team meetings, don't just stay there and be in your comfort zone. Find the next thing to push yourself with. Maybe you need to go and speak to the board, or you need to go and do a town hall. And once you become comfortable in that scenario, you then need to find the next thing. Jimmy Carr was on a podcast recently talking about this, where he was saying how he is seeking out discomfort. He's trying to find what that next level is because, he's been on stage in front of thousands of people. He's done his comedy shows, and that at some point becomes like another day in the office for you. And so he's now looking for the next thing to give himself that push and to give himself that discomfort. And I want you to have the same mindset rather than avoiding things like we mentioned at the very start. It's about seeking out that continual next challenge and continually growing as a person, as a speaker. So there you have 5 fundamental and brutally honest lessons that I have had to learn in order to speak with confidence. And these are things that I continue to practice and remind myself of day in, day out. Let me know in the comments which one of these has been most pertinent for you. If you would like the confidence to step up as a charismatic speaker in your industry, then it's time we had a chat. So book in a call, let's discuss your public speaking goals, and who knows, a few months from now, it could be you stepping up on stage.